Major earthquakes have been striking one after another in different parts of the world. In just a matter of seconds, the ground can shake violently. Familiar roads crack apart. Buildings collapse. The power goes out. Clean water is cut off. And life changes completely for thousands of families. What just happened in Venezuela is a powerful reminder that an earthquake doesn't have to last for hours to leave behind consequences that last for weeks. Once the shaking stops, the real struggle is only beginning. A lot of people think the most important thing is having as much food as possible. But in reality, what matters even more is whether you have the right kinds of food. Because after an earthquake, you may no longer have electricity to cook. You may not have enough clean water to prepare meals, and your body can quickly weaken from stress, dehydration, and exhaustion. In today's video, we're going to look at 12 essential foods you should have on hand before an earthquake strikes. Not to live in fear, but so that if the worst ever happens, you and your family can get through those first difficult days as safely and calmly as possible. Number 12. Bottled water. One of the biggest misconceptions after an earthquake is that the first real danger will be running out of food. But in reality, in many of the world's biggest disasters, the first thing to become scarce is clean drinking water. An earthquake may last only a few seconds, but it can rupture water mains, knock out power to treatment plants, and bring an entire water system to a halt. Even if water still comes out of your faucet, that doesn't mean it's safe to drink. That's why bottled water is always one of the first items on almost every emergency preparedness checklist. What many people don't realize is that the body rarely breaks down all at once from dehydration. You don't suddenly become so thirsty that you can't function. Instead, dehydration happens little by little. It starts with a dry mouth, then comes a mild headache. Next comes fatigue, trouble focusing, and slower reactions than usual. By the time you realize you truly need water, your body is already operating at much less than its best. And in the aftermath of an earthquake, that can mean the difference between having the strength to move debris, care for a loved one, or make the right decision at the right moment. A lot of people make the same mistake. They use water the way they would during normal times. They spend too much water washing their hands, wash too many dishes, or drink far more than they need on the first day because they assume more supplies will arrive tomorrow. But after a major earthquake, no one knows when the power will come back, when broken water lines will be repaired, or when emergency aid will finally reach the area. Every bottle of water you open today could be the one you'll wish you still had tomorrow. That's why emergency experts recommend keeping enough water on hand for at least the first few days and storing it in a cool place, away from direct sunlight and areas where temperatures constantly change. It's also important to check your supply regularly and replace bottles that have been stored for too long or show signs of damage. But perhaps the greatest value of bottled water isn't the bottle itself. It's everything it allows your body to keep doing. Thinking more clearly, moving longer, working more effectively, and staying calm while everything around you is still in chaos. Because in the end, very few people collapse from thirst on the first day after an earthquake. They collapse because their bodies quietly lose water, little by little, until even the simplest tasks become a struggle. Number 11. Electrolyte powder. After an earthquake, you can lose a lot of things. Electricity, clean water, your home. But there's something else that's quietly disappearing that very few people notice. The water and electrolytes inside your own body. Imagine you've just spent hours clearing broken concrete under the blazing sun. You open your last bottle of water and drink it down. But a few minutes later, the exhaustion is still there. Your legs feel heavy, your head starts spinning, and you're still thirsty. That's because your body isn't just losing water. It's also losing sodium, potassium, and other essential minerals that help your body retain fluids, keep your muscles working, and allow your nervous system to function properly. And that's only one situation. After an earthquake, the water supply may become contaminated, food spoils more easily, and sanitation conditions deteriorate. Diarrhea and vomiting can become much more common. Even small wounds can lead to infections that cause prolonged fevers. Every episode of diarrhea, vomiting, or fever causes your body to lose even more water and electrolytes. If you drink only plain water in those situations, you may continue losing strength because your body isn't fully replacing what it has lost. That's why disaster relief teams and many medical professionals always carry oral electrolyte replacement solutions into disaster zones. The greatest advantage of electrolyte powder isn't its size. One small box takes up very little space, but can be mixed into dozens of liters of rehydration solution. It's lightweight, easy to carry, and can be stored for a long time without special conditions. When using it, always mix it with clean water according to the directions on the package. Don't make it more concentrated or keep drinking it simply because you think more electrolytes are always better. It's designed to help replace water and essential minerals, not to completely replace your daily drinking water. Store electrolyte packets in a cool, dry place, away from moisture and excessive heat. It's best to keep them with your emergency water supply so they're ready to use immediately without wasting time looking for them. In the end, the value of electrolyte powder isn't that it makes water taste better. Its real value is helping your body make the most of every precious sip of water when clean water becomes a scarce resource. Because after an earthquake, what matters isn't how much water you can drink. It's how much of it your body can hold on to so you can keep standing, keep working, and keep protecting the people you love. Number 10. Freeze-dried food. The clock reads just before 7 in the evening. It's your third dinner since the earthquake. The power is still out. There's only a little gas left in the tank. You stand in the kitchen facing a decision. Use the last of your fuel to cook tonight's meal, or save it in case tomorrow is even harder. That's when many people realize that after an earthquake, food isn't the only thing that becomes valuable. Time, clean water, and fuel do too. A meal that needs cooking doesn't just consume ingredients. It also uses up resources you have no idea when you'll get back. That's why freeze-dried food is a favorite among people with emergency preparedness experience. Not because it tastes better, but because it helps you save almost everything else. A pouch of freeze-dried food typically costs around $8 to $15, depending on the type and serving size. That may sound expensive compared to everyday food, but in return, you get a complete meal that can last 20 to 30 years, as long as the packaging remains sealed. Very few foods can match that kind of shelf life. Even more important, you don't have to worry about replacing it every year. If you have hot water, all you have to do is open the pouch, add the amount of water listed in the instructions, and wait a few minutes. If all you have is room temperature water, many freeze-dried meals can still be rehydrated. It just takes a little longer. One simple trick many preppers use is keeping a measuring cup or a bottle with measurement markings ready to go. It helps you use exactly the right amount of water and avoid wasting it when every drop matters. Store freeze-dried food in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight. A stable temperature will help it stay in good condition even longer. The greatest value of freeze-dried food isn't its shelf life. It's the resources it helps you save after an earthquake. Your time, your clean water, and every last bit of fuel you have left. Because in a crisis, a meal that doesn't require you to light a stove can sometimes be worth more than a meal that simply tastes better. Number 9. peanut butter. By the fourth or fifth day after an earthquake, a lot of people start dealing with something they never expected. They don't feel as hungry as they did before, not because their bodies have all the energy they need, but because days of stress, lack of sleep, mild dehydration, and constant pressure have noticeably reduced their appetite. You open a can of meat, then put the lid back on. You look at a pack of crackers but don't feel like eating. Even a meal you normally love suddenly feels difficult to finish. That's a very common response when your body has been under stress for days. The real concern isn't missing one meal. It's that many people begin eating far too little for several days in a row without even realizing it. As your calorie intake gradually drops, you tire more quickly, have a harder time concentrating, and even simple tasks like cleaning up your home, waiting in line for water, or taking care of loved ones become much more difficult. That's where peanut butter proves its value, not because it's the highest calorie food you can store, but because it's one of the easiest foods to eat, even when you have no appetite. Just 2 tablespoons provide about 190 calories, along with protein and healthy fats that deliver steady energy instead of the quick spike and crash that comes with many sugary snacks. A large jar usually costs around $3 to $6 and can last 1 to 2 years if it's unopened. Once you open it, simply keep the lid tightly sealed and store it in a cool, dry place. In most cases, refrigeration isn't necessary if you use it within a reasonable amount of time. You can eat it straight from the spoon, spread it on crackers or tortillas, or stir it into oatmeal to turn a simple breakfast into a much more filling meal. If you also have honey, a thin layer on top of the peanut butter can make it much easier to eat when your appetite has faded. One common mistake is buying oversized jars and leaving them untouched in storage for years. Even though peanut butter has a long shelf life, it's still best to follow the first in, first out rule. Use the oldest jar in your everyday routine, then replace it with a new one. That way, your emergency supply stays fresh without wasting food. Many experienced preppers also keep single-serve peanut butter packets on hand. They're easy to carry if you have to evacuate, convenient for sharing with others, and perfect for slipping into an emergency go bag without taking up much space. Of course, if someone in your family has a peanut allergy, choose another nut or seed butter that's safe for them. The reason peanut butter shows up in so many emergency food supplies isn't because it's perfect. It's because on the days when you don't feel like eating anything at all, just a few spoonfuls can still give your body enough energy to keep taking care of yourself and the people you love. After an earthquake, sometimes the hardest challenge isn't finding food. It's getting your body to accept food when you need it the most. Number 8. Canned meat. After many major earthquakes around the world, rescue teams have encountered a very similar situation. A lot of people still have some food left, but they no longer have the strength to do the things that matter most. Lift a slab of concrete. Pull a fallen tree branch out of the way. Carry heavy containers of water, or help an injured person get out of a dangerous area. In the first few days after a disaster, the biggest challenge isn't always finding food. It's keeping your body strong enough to keep working. That's why people with emergency preparedness experience always make room for canned meat. Not because it tastes better than frozen food, and not because it's cheaper, but because when the power goes out, a freezer full of food can quickly become a liability, while a can of meat can still be opened and eaten immediately, even after years in storage. A can of chicken, beef, or pork usually costs around $3 to $6 and can last 2 to 5 years if it's unopened. Just pop the lid, and you have a ready-to-eat source of protein that pairs well with rice, canned beans, tortillas, or crackers without any additional cooking. One common mistake is stocking only canned tuna because people assume all canned meat is basically the same. In reality, storing a variety of options like chicken, beef, and pork makes meals far less repetitive if you end up relying on them for several days in a row. If you have the choice, buy cans with pull-tab lids. After an earthquake, something as simple as a missing can opener can make a meal much harder than it needs to be. Once a can has been opened, transfer any leftovers to a clean container with a lid and use them as soon as possible. Avoid storing food in an opened metal can, since its quality can decline more quickly. Something many people overlook is that the liquid in some canned meats can also be put to good use. It can be added to rice, porridge, or soup to boost flavor without using extra seasonings when food supplies are limited. Canned meat isn't the kind of food that gets you excited when you're stocking your pantry. But the day you find yourself working from morning until night without electricity, without a stove, and without the time to cook, you'll understand why it's included in almost every emergency food supply. Because after an earthquake, having food isn't the only thing that matters. It's still having the strength to do what your family needs you to do. Number 7. Canned beans. Two neighbors go through the same earthquake. Both of them have stocked up on almost the same amount of food. They both have rice. They both have canned meat. They both have crackers. But a week later, one of them still feels relatively strong, while the other feels bloated, uncomfortable, and barely has any appetite left. The difference isn't how much food they stored. It's a few cans of beans sitting quietly on the shelf. After a disaster, fresh vegetables are often the first foods to disappear or spoil. As a result, meals tend to rely heavily on processed foods and starches. When that goes on for several days, your digestive system may not work as well as it normally does. Canned beans help fill that gap. They provide fiber, plant-based protein, and carbohydrates all in one food. That makes it much easier to build balanced meals. Even when your options are limited, a can of beans usually costs just $1 to $2, but it can provide several servings. Most have a shelf life of 2 to 5 years, making them an excellent choice for long-term storage. The best part is that you don't have to soak them overnight like dried beans. You don't have to cook them for hours. And you don't have to use extra gas or electricity. Just open the can and they're ready to eat, or mix them with rice, canned meat, soup, or tortillas to add more nutrition to your meal. If conditions allow and you'd like to reduce the sodium, you can drain the liquid and give the beans a quick rinse with clean water. But if water is limited, eating them straight from the can is perfectly fine. Always check the can before using it. If it's bulging, leaking, or badly dented, don't use it. Store canned beans in a cool, dry place. Canned beans may not be the most exciting food in your emergency supply, but many people don't truly appreciate their value until fresh vegetables have been gone from the table for days. Because in the end, during a long-lasting crisis, staying healthy isn't just about having enough food. It's about helping your body get the most out of every meal you still have. Number 6. Instant oatmeal. On the first morning after the earthquake, you do your best to keep everything feeling normal. You open the kitchen cabinet, look for a familiar breakfast, and tell yourself that life will be back to normal soon. By the third morning, the power is still out. The coffee maker sits silent. The bread is gone, and the fresh food in the refrigerator is beginning to spoil. By the fifth morning, the biggest change is no longer the food. It's your routine. You wake up, but you no longer know what you're going to eat to start the day. It may seem like a small thing, but disaster psychology experts have found that when everyday routines disappear, people are much more likely to feel stressed, overwhelmed, and emotionally drained. A crisis often disrupts your daily rhythm before it runs out your food supply. That's why instant oatmeal is one of the smartest foods to keep in your emergency pantry. Not because it's the most delicious meal, but because it helps you quickly rebuild a breakfast that's simple, familiar, and dependable. A large container of oatmeal usually costs around $4 to $8 and provides 25 to 30 servings. When stored in a cool, dry place and sealed tightly after each use, oatmeal typically stays fresh for 18 to 24 months. If it's vacuum sealed with oxygen absorbers, it can last even longer. Oatmeal's biggest advantage is its flexibility. If you have hot water, you can make a meal in just a few minutes. If the power is out, you can still soak it in clean water or shelf-stable milk for a few hours. Want more calories? Add a spoonful of peanut butter, a little honey, or some dried fruit. With just a few simple ingredients, you have a breakfast that can keep you going for hours. One helpful tip is to divide your oatmeal into smaller bags or containers, each holding just enough for one meal. That makes it easier to manage portions, avoid waste, and keep from opening the entire container every day. In the end, the value of oatmeal isn't just in its nutrition, it's in the sense of normalcy it brings back. Because after an earthquake, sometimes the thing that helps you face another difficult day isn't an elaborate meal. It's simply a warm bowl of oatmeal that makes life feel familiar again. Number 5. Trail mix. For hundreds of years, mountain climbers have shared a simple habit. Before heading out, they always packed a small bag filled with nuts and dried fruit. Years later, soldiers on long marches did the very same thing. Today, many search and rescue teams still keep a few packs of trail mix in their emergency backpacks. What's interesting is that these three groups lived in completely different times, but they all faced the same problem. None of them knew exactly when their next meal would come. The same thing can happen after an earthquake. You may have to leave your home within minutes, walk for hours to reach a safe place, stand in line for water or emergency supplies, or spend your time helping loved ones without ever getting the chance to sit down for a proper meal. That's when you realize there's a big difference between food you keep in the pantry and food you can carry with you. Trail mix was made for the second situation. A bag of trail mix usually weighs only a few hundred grams, costs around $6 to $12, and can last 6 to 12 months if the package stays sealed. If it's vacuum sealed or stored in a cool place, it can last even longer. Its greatest advantage is that it doesn't require any preparation. No stove, no water, no utensils. You can eat a little at a time while you're on the move without having to stop for long. One simple tip that many experienced preppers use is to divide a large bag into several smaller ones, each containing a single serving. If you have to evacuate, you can simply toss a few small bags into your backpack instead of carrying the entire package. When choosing trail mix, look for simple ingredients like nuts and dried fruit. If you live in a hot climate, avoid leaving it in your car for long periods, since high temperatures can reduce the quality of some of the ingredients. Trail mix isn't meant to be a complete meal, and it was never designed to replace one. It was made to bridge the gap between meals when you have no idea when you'll get the chance to eat again. Because after an earthquake, what matters isn't always how much food you manage to store at home. It's whether you have something small enough to take with you when you're forced to leave that home behind. Number 4. Nutrition bars. I bought almost 30 nutrition bars for my emergency supplies. That was one of the most upvoted comments in an online disaster preparedness forum. But what really caught my attention was the next sentence. By the third day, I hated them so much I'd rather go hungry than eat another one. It sounds funny, but it's also a mistake that a lot of people make. When buying emergency food, they usually choose the bar with the most protein, the most vitamins, or the one that's advertised as the healthiest. They forget one very simple thing. After an earthquake, you won't be eating under normal circumstances. You may have gone several nights without sleep. You'll be exhausted, stressed, maybe even nauseous from everything that's happened. At that point, the nutrition label isn't the most important thing anymore. What matters is whether you can bring yourself to take one more bite. That's why, when choosing nutrition bars, pick the ones you genuinely enjoy eating right now. Don't buy them just because someone else says they're the best. Buy them because you know you'll still be willing to eat them when you're completely worn out. A box of nutrition bars usually costs around $10 to $25, depending on the brand and the number of bars inside. Most have a shelf life of 6 months to more than a year. Store them in a cool, dry place and keep them away from excessive heat, since high temperatures can melt the coating or affect the flavor. One simple trick that many experienced preppers use is to avoid buying just one flavor. Pick a variety instead. After several days of eating the same thing, even a small change in flavor can make it much easier to keep eating. Nutrition bars were never meant to replace every meal. They were made to fill the gap during those moments when you're simply too tired to prepare anything else. Because after an earthquake, the best emergency food isn't the one with the most impressive nutrition label. It's the food you'll still want to eat when everything around you feels overwhelming. Number 3. Honey. One father once shared what those days after an earthquake were like, and said the thing that worried him most wasn't himself. It was his young daughter. For nearly an entire day, she refused to eat almost anything. Not because they had run out of food, but because she was terrified. He didn't try to force her to eat a full meal. He simply gave her a spoonful of honey. She finished it. A few minutes later, she looked less exhausted. She was willing to drink some water, and not long after that, she was finally able to eat a little real food. That's the unique value of honey. Sometimes, what your body needs isn't a full meal right away. It just needs something small enough to help it start again. A jar of pure honey typically costs around $8 to $15. When stored in a tightly sealed container, away from moisture and direct sunlight, honey can maintain its quality for many years. If it crystallizes over time, that's completely natural and doesn't mean it's gone bad. Simply place the jar in warm water, and it will gradually return to its original consistency. Besides eating it by the spoonful, you can stir it into warm water, mix it into oatmeal, or spread it on crackers or tortillas to add a little flavor when your meals start feeling repetitive. Of course, honey is not suitable for children under 1 year old, and it should never replace a complete meal. But in many situations, a single spoonful can make it easier for the body to accept other foods afterward. There are times when what keeps a person going isn't a large meal. It's simply a small sign that lets both the body and the mind know they still have the strength to take one more step. And sometimes, one spoonful of honey can be exactly that. Number 2. Powdered milk. On the first night after the earthquake, only a handful of food was left in the kitchen. A father opened his emergency backpack and placed a can of powdered milk on the table. He looked at his young son, who hadn't eaten anything since that afternoon. Then he looked at his elderly mother, sitting quietly in the corner of the room. At that moment, he realized something very simple. A crisis isn't just about the people who are healthy and strong. Every family has someone who needs a little more care. Young children still need proper nutrition to grow. Older adults often eat less when they're stressed or exhausted. And people recovering from injuries need extra nutrition to help their bodies heal. That's why powdered milk is a staple in so many emergency food supplies. Not because it can replace every meal, but because it helps care for the most vulnerable members of the family when fresh food is no longer available. A container of powdered milk typically costs around $12 to $25, and, if unopened, can last 12 to 24 months. Once opened, keep it tightly sealed, store it in a cool, dry place, and use it according to the manufacturer's directions. Besides mixing it with water to drink, powdered milk can also be added to porridge, oatmeal, or a variety of other foods to boost their nutritional value when your meal options become limited. One simple tip is not to wait until an emergency to open your first container. Rotate it into your everyday meals and replace it with a new one. That way, you'll always have a fresh supply without having to throw it away after it expires. Sometimes, what worries adults the most isn't their own next meal. It's whether their children, their parents, or the people they love are still getting the care they need. Maybe that's the greatest value of powdered milk. It doesn't just nourish the body. It helps a family keep taking care of one another, even when everyday life has been put on hold. Number 1. White rice. If every food on today's list were laid out on one table, the bag of white rice would probably attract the least attention. It doesn't have flashy packaging. It's not a high-tech survival food, and it's certainly not the kind of food people get excited about. But look back at what has happened after earthquakes, wars, and famines throughout history. In countless places around the world, whenever a crisis dragged on, people eventually returned to one familiar staple: rice. Not because it's perfect, but because it's dependable. A 20-pound bag of white rice usually costs around $15 to $25, yet it can provide hundreds of servings. When packed in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and stored in a cool, dry place with stable temperatures, white rice can maintain its quality for decades. What's remarkable is that nearly every food we've talked about today can be paired with rice. Canned meat, beans, honey, or even just a little salt can turn it into a simple, satisfying meal. One tip that many experienced preppers follow is to divide rice into several smaller bags. If one bag gets torn or damaged by moisture, you'll still have the rest of your supply. It also makes the rice much easier to carry if you ever have to leave home. White rice has helped generations of people make it through some of the hardest times in history. Maybe that's why the number 1 spot doesn't belong to the most expensive food. It belongs to the humble staple that has quietly fed billions of people. And when everything else feels uncertain, sometimes the most ordinary things are the ones you can count on the most. An earthquake may last only a few seconds, but the decisions you make before it happens can shape the days that follow. What's worth noticing is that none of the 12 foods on today's list are expensive or hard to find. They're ordinary foods, but they've proven their value time and time again under extraordinary circumstances. Being prepared doesn't mean living in fear. It means that when everything around you turns chaotic, you'll still have enough food to take care of yourself and the people you love. Because after any disaster, what brings the greatest peace of mind isn't luck. It's knowing you prepared ahead of time.